Good evening, all. This is Bradley Meyer with the DePIN Connection and Joe with Network Bits. Tonight, we're going to be talking about general market updates. Obviously, we've had some turbulence in the markets recently, but then also touch on some of the DePIN projects that we cover and what our feelings are right now with some of the changes that have been made and what we feel like the market might do looking forward. Joe, thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A little bit of a last-minute stream here. We haven't done one in quite some time, but I've seen you've been doing some good interviews.
Yeah, man, I've been trying to keep my foot on the gas pedal. I had GeoNet, Mike on with GeoNet earlier this week. I got Ariel on. I had Demo on a couple weeks ago. So working on some interviews right now with someone from the Exhibits team, which is a project I'm interested in. Streamer is another one. And then also talking to the Arweave team or AO specifically. So see if I can try to put them on too. Yeah. So all projects I'm definitely interested in. How you been, man?
Good. Traveling a lot. A little bit sick of the crypto scene and the toxicity going on. So it's good to take a break. Got a GeoNet set up over the weekend, as you've seen.
I saw.
With everything else I put on that grain elevator. So pretty excited about that. I never really gave GeoNet the attention that it deserved about a year ago. And, there were some people involved with it that made me not, think it wasn't as legitimate as it should be. And then, of course, some people that gave me a bad impression about it that I'm close with.
Sure.
But we'll get into that. I mean, that's just a typical crypto. But, yeah, I'm really excited for that. I see they're doing a lot of great things. There's particular one topic we probably will talk about is basically Solana has this massive edge in the market over all the other blockchains, and now GeoNet is opening up like a bridge for liquidity over there. So that's something we'll talk about later on. But yeah, if you want to take it away about the market, I have plenty to say, but nothing that is really as an update, we should say.
Sure. Yeah. So, I put out a video on this. We saw, that flash crash happen last Sunday, just a week ago. It feels like an eternity ago at this point. But, we've had a lot of sell pressure. First to start with Germany. Then we had the Mt. Gox distributions go out. And then the one thing I will say is throughout all of this, we've seen the Bitcoin ETFs buying up Bitcoin in droves. I think at this point, I believe BlackRock has like 21 billion in Bitcoin now. So a lot of the selling pressure has been offset. I would imagine once some of these major sell-off events go away and are behind us, that's when I think we are going to see a major leg up in the market. And I think, for me, I'm adding. I own Bitcoin. I also obviously have a lot of positions in altcoins, but for me, Bitcoin is something that I plan on holding on for the very long term. But more recently, last Sunday, what we saw was it's called a carry trade. So essentially, Japan had really low interest rates, and people were basically borrowing against the yen, where they could get access to capital really cheap. And they were investing in the U.S. market in our equities and different fixed income assets. But when Japan said that they were going to raise their interest rates, it basically closed the gap between our currencies and kind of messed up that arbitrage. And it caused a massive sell-off. But we had already started to see the market turn down a little bit because the job reports were a little bit weaker than expected. And Warren Buffett with Berkshire Hathaway had announced that they had sold about half their Apple stock for about $80 billion, and they're sitting on a lot of cash. So I think there's some fear in the market right now, which I believe is warranted. But I don't think that we're moving into recession territory yet. I think that this was somewhat of a black swan event. That said, I think this Japan thing could still be a factor moving forward. I think this event highlighted just how much capital was being deployed through this carry trade. I don't think a lot of people understood how big this thing was. So it'll be interesting moving forward. But that is what caused that massive sell off. Now, people that purchased and had the balls to purchase when it got really bloody last Sunday, they did very well. I mean, I was looking at some of the prices of some of my holdings, and I was like, man, like you could have turned around a 30-40% return in 24 hours had you pounced on it. But it happens quick. You know, you'd have had to buy at the bottom. But I still remain bullish in the short term. But you know, and we've talked about this, Joe, throughout the year. The economy is not as strong as people might think, and I do believe that there are a lot of warning signs flashing right now that we could see a recession. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's a matter of when and not if. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah. So that's kind of my general sentiment right now as far as the market goes.
Yeah. To tell you the truth here, I haven't really been paying attention. When you look at that news, you see conflicting reports there, and you know the mainstream media has an agenda to make certain people look good, certain people look bad. So it's it's a lot of drama. And what I took notice of, and what kind of made me decide not just step away, not really have discussions, not really look at it, is particularly here in crypto. When this event hit, you see everyone out in their own self-interest, trying to peddle their own agenda, trying to peddle their own narrative. I've seen a couple like founders and high-level individuals in crypto projects writing on X, in Discord, etc. We've seen this. We've seen much worse before in the recent years. This is nothing. They don't know that, but obviously, the agenda is to keep everyone from panicking and exiting the project, or selling off and further hurting the project, or maybe being risk adverse to further deploying hardware, right? And there was another really dumb statement I heard that on its face sounds good, but it's always about the bull market. The bull market's coming. It's inevitable, right? But they say, this is exactly what happened before the last bull market. This is a great sign. Not exactly. Not really. Completely different scenario. That was because of a pandemic. This one is because of built up economic issues. Easiest way to put it. I mean, the metrics that we've discussed in previous live streams are still all there. Inflation, unemployment, record high debt, you name it. So it's this is not an artificial economic type of slowdown. And also consider that last bull run, that a good portion of that happened because of the stimulus checks. Okay. And this is completely different territory, in my opinion. So just so many of the things that I'm hearing, it drives me crazy that people don't think critically about these things, and that they'll take it at face value and just, okay, it's fine. Really, all you can truly do in this situation is put yourself first. Focus on what's going to get you through a possible recession, or any type of financial strain. Anyways, that's my piece on that.
Yeah. I will say this market. I mean, all market cycles are different, right? But this one in particular is quite different in the sense that we've been in a quantitative tightening environment where the Fed rate has been raised. Okay, so when you look back to Bitcoin's inception, ever since 2008, we've had interest. The Fed rate's been near zero, or very, very low. So we've been in this environment where they've essentially been juicing the economy. So this is the first market cycle we've seen in crypto where the Fed has elevated rates. And not only did they raise rates, but they did it the fastest time in history. In fact, let me show you this. I'm going to show this chart here. I don't know if you can add that, Joe. So you look at the different rate increases, historically speaking. Like, we've had several times where the Fed has had to raise rates to fight inflation or slow down the economy. 2022 is the fastest they've ever raised rates. We've never, I mean, it's unprecedented. We've never seen that. Generally, they don't do that because it takes 12 to 18 months once the rates are changed to really ripple through the economy. So you normally want to raise it and kind of like wait and see what happens. So we're starting to now see the impact of this, this rate increase, the rate increases, plural, in the economy. There's a lot of warning signs that are flashing. That said, I do think September we're going to start seeing the rates go down, which is bullish for risk on assets, especially like crypto, for example. I mean, in the stock market in general. So I do think that we could get some relief in the short term. But when you look at these types of periods where the Fed raised rates, normally once they start to lower rates, anywhere from 2 to 6 months later on average is when you see the recession hit. Because when you think about it as a big ship, it takes a while to steer it. So you raise rates, it's a slow moving turn, but it starts to gain momentum. It's not like when you lower rates, it's just going to go back. We're moving, like the damage has been done. So the question is, how much damage has been done? And if they can stop inflation at 2%, 2% is the inflation rate that the Fed targets for a healthy economy. And this started back in the 70s, and now every major central bank across the globe now has adopted this 2% metric they're looking for inflation. The problem is if they wait too long, then we're going to go lower than 2%, and that's not good. I mean, that could put us in recession. I think that's going to happen. I don't think you can raise rates this quickly and just land it perfectly at 2%. And to your point, credit card debt just hit like 1.1 or 1.2 trillion dollars, the highest we've ever seen. And if you tell the story behind that, to your point, people had extra capital during COVID, like you said. So part of that was stimulus for sure. Part of that, though, is that people couldn't spend money. You couldn't go out to restaurants. You couldn't go out and do anything. So people had excess savings. So when inflation hit, a lot of people didn't realize or weren't necessarily recognizing the higher costs so much. They weren't feeling it because they had excess savings. Those are gone. And, people have started to put things on credit cards to keep up their standard of living. And that is, we're seeing people now are hitting their credit limits, and credit card defaults are surging. Yeah, it's not a good sign. So that's why I do believe that, amongst many other warning signs. I think looking out into 2025, I think things could hit. So like you said, Joe, I mean, I would start to, think about, especially if we hit a bull run, start thinking about, some financial goals you have personally outside of crypto that you can put like a tangible dollar amount to, whether that be paying off credit cards, whether that be paying off your mortgage or your auto loan, or just having cash built up that you have, enough money to cover you in the event that you're laid off or whatever it may be, just peace of mind. Because it does when you start to see your crypto balance in your wallet explode, you lose the concept of how much money that is very quickly. And if a recession does hit, that could drop very quickly. And I think it's going to be really important to keep that in mind over the next 6 months. Don't leave too much money on the table, because
Yeah.
no matter how much people will tell you to diamond hand and give you shit for taking profits, but you don't win any awards for watching your portfolio do a 10x and then drop 90%. You know.
Yeah, and there's still this, once again, a narrative that crypto has no no connection, no correlation to the traditional markets. And I don't know how you could possibly say that after we've seen the introduction of the Bitcoin ETF, along with talk of Ethereum ETFs, which will probably lead to something like a Solana ETF later down the road. It's I think it's preying on people's ignorance here, is what it is. This whole diamond hands, and it's really bullying people into playing playing the game how others want it to be played. Does that make sense? It's especially prevalent in these smaller projects that don't have massive liquidity, so it's like taboo to sell off. No, you do what's best for you because everyone else is going to do what's best for them, and that is, that's another point we can talk about. I think we'll get to later. Is about, I don't think there's a whole lot of conviction in what, when it comes to what people say about crypto and their actions. But a different point, I did want to ask you, how much of a factor do you think the political tensions, political predictions, sentiment overall played into that that market correction? Because it in my opinion timed pretty on point with certain polls and certain events that took place.
Yeah, I I'll say this much: I don't know how much it played a role in the pullback. It did correlate. I'll say this much though: my personal plan will differ depending on the election. So if it's looking like Kamala is going to get in office, I'll probably start taking profits a little earlier. I do think that if Trump gets elected, like the markets, I mean, he's looking at cutting corporate tax rates, whatever. I think the markets will rally a little bit more based on him being elected. I think whoever's elected, though, I still think they're inheriting a fucking mess. Okay.
Yeah, it's true, but
so
when it comes to Trump and the one wing of the Republican Party, I guess it's not all the same, but there's certain parts of that camp that they want for the economic conditions to allow for absolute risk on. They want to allow for investing and building upon the business, where when it comes to what the Democrats want as far as policy, it's not necessarily business friendly. It's typically higher taxes. There's a lot about ESG and when it comes to, for example, drilling or certain non-renewable energy. Well, we've not gotten to the point to renewable energy, but we're taking away what we use for energy, and we're buying it from other countries.
Yeah,
and people here are now losing their jobs or not making as much. That impacts the economy quite significantly. That takes a lot of money out of people's pockets, and that also sends money overseas to people who are producing these resources for energy. So yeah, I can see it having an impact overall.
Yeah.
Also, let's consider Trump seems to have warmed up to crypto since he had his NFT business there.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has. I mean, there's also rumors that Kamala is going to change her stance on crypto too, because the Biden administration has been very anti-crypto. Okay, I mean, there's
Yes.
no doubt about it. But the SEC recently basically settled with Ripple. It was a big win for Ripple, and in my opinion, I think they realized, like, dude, there's a lot of crypto owners. It's going to be a big topic in this upcoming election. I saw something that there's more crypto owners than dog owners. I don't know if that's true, but I think that would be like 50 million people. I wish less of them were meme coin owners and like actually like owning real shit. But it is what it is. Like I think it is a big it's going to be a big topic in this upcoming election. Yes. So to your point, like Trump, he's at the Bitcoin conference. I will say this much, that I wasn't like overwhelmingly impressed by his speech. RFK, I would say, actually knows what he's talking about when it comes to crypto. And a lot of stuff that he says, like there are some things that are off the wall a little bit, but I think his was way more impressive in my opinion. But I also think though that like Trump would put people in place that know the industry and would help push it forward. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Democrats change their tune on this coming into the election. Now, who knows how much of this is just to get votes? They could be pandering to get votes, but at the same time, like I do, with this last administration at least, we were going to fall behind in other countries. I mean, blockchain technology is not going anywhere. It's going to be a big technology globally moving forward. I think that, we should embrace it. Okay. Now, the amount of rug pulls and all the meme coin bullshit going on is not doing us any service. Like, it doesn't give us credibility. It looks bad, frankly. So I would like to get some of that out of the space. But there's a lot of smart people moving into the space. There's a lot of real stuff being built, and I think DePIN's one of those sectors that there's some really cool stuff going on. And we saw a small pump back in spring earlier this year, but I don't think we've seen, what the potential is with this sector specifically in some of the projects and what I think they'll do.
Yeah, summarized that pretty well. Yeah.
Oh, as far as decoupling, by the way, Joe, as far as decoupling, like I think you're absolutely right. People that think that if we're in a recession and people are like worried about paying their bills and keeping their job, they're going to start pushing cash into freaking altcoins. I think they're out of their minds.
If no one has cash for anything, how are they going to buy crypto? Number one. Number two, with the ETFs, yes, it does become interlinked with the massive financial institutions buying Bitcoin and probably buying other altcoins. It's now a part of the market.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin will decouple. I think Bitcoin over time, I think Bitcoin will decouple more and more, and it will be looked at as a safe haven. We'll still see fluctuations in price, and this is the other thing. Like we'll see fluctuations in price in all of crypto, but those fluctuations will get lesser and lesser over time because as the market cap gets larger, the amount of capital you need to infuse to see the same type of swings will become so large. There will be more stability over time, which is a good thing for the market overall, but the 1000Xs, the 100Xs are going to be a lot harder to come by. I think this could be, the last.
This might be the last.
Yeah, the last market cycle where you can see those types of returns. Not to say they won't exist; they'll be a lot harder to find, though. I think in future market cycles.
Oh, certainly, and we're already starting to see some, consolidations when it comes to who the winners are in the, the world of blockchain when it comes to specifically layer ones that are being used and what currencies the retail investor has interest in. But yeah, one of the points that I wanted to get to here was around Solana. And if 2 years ago, there was a lot of this constant babbling about venture capital, SBF, it goes down all the time. It's just terrible. No one's going to use it. You've heard it. You've heard a spiel. And I dissented with that opinion. I took a lot of flack for it. And now what we're seeing currently is that Solana is the most used blockchain. It is, yeah, sure. It malfunctions once in a while. It goes down or has some sort of infrastructure issues, which don't really last too long, in my opinion. But we've seen numerous projects that, when they're choosing a layer 1 blockchain, they have endless options, and all these other blockchains are willing to give them a grant to build on their layer 1 and to use it. And in most cases, that's passed up for Solana. And why is that? Because with Solana, you have just a much more significant ecosystem, a larger community. I don't believe they give grants, but they do provide support from their developer team when it comes to building on the blockchain. And the biggest thing is the liquidity pools.
Liquidity for 100%. Yeah.
Head, shoulders, and waist over any other blockchain. And it just comes down to not everyone has interest in having 10 wallets on 10 different blockchains and sorting through that. And most people already bought it on Solana.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of investment behind it. And I also believe, part of the ecosystem is why people are so why they like or prefer building on Solana over other changes is particularly because of the smart contracts being written in Rust, where Rust is a programming language that is not specific to smart contracts. There's a very large talent pool for Rust developers who could easily come in and learn how to program a smart contract versus having learned something like Solidity or Pact, Haskell, etc. So there's a lot of factors that go into why Solana has taken this position in the market.
Yeah.
Even though up to this point you've probably not heard a lot of good about it, but you've seen these projects like XNet migrating to Solana because there's no liquidity pools. There's liquidity pools, but there's very little liquidity in those pools. There's very little interest from the rest of the community in these types of projects. So not a whole lot of bleed over, not a whole lot of circulation of value of liquidity going through. And that has been that's been a hurdle for them. And it's, if I recall correctly, about a year and a half ago, it was the same case for GeoNet. They had a very low liquidity pool where if someone had mined for a year and sold off, that would tank the price. Now, they're not moving chains, and Polygon's a perfectly good chain. It's fast enough, and you don't really need to make complex smart contracts. You shouldn't be doing all sorts of crazy on-chain calculations and on-chain systems when it comes to something like DePIN.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the point I'm getting at here is Demo, XNet, GeoNet, all built on Polygon successfully.
Yeah.
And, why is GeoNet doing a bridge to Solana? Liquidity. Why is XNet moving over to Solana? Liquidity, and because there's more resources in a larger community, more support, more of an ecosystem. So when it comes down to it, I think Solana is going to be a winner. Mm-hmm. And who else is there really to compete with them?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think Solana, has won in a lot of different ways, and they're obviously getting institutional interest as well. Grayscale is like kind of the first one, but I think it's very likely they're going to be the next ETF launched. The estimates were probably sometime in spring, March, I think was the last I looked, but it's easy to use. it's cheap. That's where Ethereum got crushed. It's easy to use. If you use the Phantom wallet, also Rainbow wallet has support for it. So I think from a user standpoint, like that's the ease of use is huge, right? The liquidity for sure. I got into Solana in the last market cycle when it was like $11. And I told one of the owners of my accounts when I was in the solar industry, he's like, he wanted to get into crypto. I was like, just buy Solana on a weekly basis. Just put a buy order in. When it got fudded down to $8, when the FTX thing went down, he's like, should I sell? I was like, buy more. And he did. And he's very happy today, obviously. But I do think it's the one thing. The question I had though is like, okay, so I'm looking here. Their fees, their daily fees right now did top Ethereum, but it's 5.5 million a day in fees. So when you look at its market cap, some of these market caps are still out of whack. I think we're still in this period where we're betting on the future adoption of these blockchains, right?
Yeah.
But I do think it's the big winner, them and Ethereum for sure. I still like Polygon. Okay, I think Polygon.
I do too. Yeah, I think it's good.
I think it's still a great layer two solution. They don't have the liquidity, and I for these projects, if I were the head of the project, I'd be like, well, let's get Polygon support, let's get Solana support. That's what GeoNet's doing. And I brought this up in my interview with GeoNet with Mike, and that was one of the main things was that yes, the liquidity in that Solana ecosystem is massive. By the way, I added to my GeoNet position again. I keep buying more. I'm like, dude, it's held up well in this downturn. I just think it's so freaking undervalued. Not financial advice. So someone did ask in the comments, how do you get exposure to GeoNet? You can buy the token if you want, or you can deploy a base station, which Joe just did. So wanted to respond to that one. But yeah, I think we're going to see more and more go to Solana. Now, someone else just asked about migrating over to Peak. So I don't know what your thoughts are there. Are they migrating or are they just adding support through Peak?
Who's that? Someone
asked that over here. Map Metrics. They said they're migrating from Solana to Peak. So some of these like Peak and IOTEX are two other blockchains that are DePIN based. And I think that they basically started they have a starter kit, if you will. Like if you're a DePIN project, they give you a ton of support in helping you get your project off the ground. So I wonder if they're cutting off support on Solana or are they migrating completely? I haven't looked into that enough to know. But I do think
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, Solana, like the ecosystem has a ton of liquidity. There's too much in meme coins, though, in my opinion. Like this is something that people need to realize is that you can certainly do well in meme coins. Like I've done well on a couple this market cycle. I don't like that. I think the meme coin stuff sucks for the space. You can certainly make money on it, but you can also get burned. And there are so many rug pulls happening right now, like left and right. It's crazy. I would love to see some of that liquidity move into legitimate projects. I think we'll start to see that. I do think we'll start to see some liquidity move into like the DePIN space, especially. Let's see here. Sourceful chat asked this about the new Helium sub-DAO. I haven't looked into it too much. I'll tell you this much.
That's your bread and butter.
What's that?
Isn't it solar?
It is solar based, but I'll say this much. So, did you see there's a chart put out on the DePIN projects that are producing the most revenue right now?
Is that from Who Loves Burrito?
No, it came out from Masari, I believe, this last week. And Glow Glow Network was the solar project that was producing the most. And they had the best ratio. GeoNet was, and ratio, when I say ratio, I mean revenue to market cap ratio. That project seems to be doing really well. I need to look more into Sourceful. I think helium is going to have a resurgence in this market cycle. I mean, it has. It was down at
Yeah,
it's
it will.
$1.50 at one point, like in the bear market. It has already done like a 6x or 5 or 6x, but I don't know that we'll see the all-time highs of the last market cycle where we saw like $60. But I wouldn't be surprised to see us getting like $30 range in this upcoming leg up. And they're doing, I mean, they're basically becoming, the H&T tokens becoming like the center point for, they're going to continue adding more networks onto the helium network. So I think it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's you know what? That is another thing I wanted to speak to you about. And this is something that, Ariola and some of the guys in the Hive Mapper Discord as well as myself, we were joking about, but it's how effective are having these DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organization, in your opinion?
I think it's interesting in the point, as far as like for voting rights and pushing the sub DAOs forward. I'm a big, and maybe this will change over time, but I'm a big believer in the utility token. Like if I'm getting exposure to the helium, ecosystem, I want H&T. I'm not super interested in like the IoT token. I think IoT over time will do better and better and better. I would rather hold the utility token over the governance tokens personally. And there are people that will disagree with that for sure. Not to say those governance tokens can't pump and can't be a good return on investment, but it all comes down to utility for me. Like I would rather hold H&T token than I can get exposure to all of it. In the H&T ecosystem, I still have IoT hotspots that are up producing, and at different times where I've seen like the H&T to IoT ratio in a more favorable position. I've moved IoT into H&T.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at here is that, well, and I don't mean to put this on helium. It's not just them specifically. In other parts of crypto, I feel like in so many ways the DAO becomes more of a bureaucratic type of process, and it's a lot of the people who volunteer to get on there may not understand the projects in depth to the point that they need to. And when it comes to community contributors, and there's also people with ulterior motives, but to be a decentralized project, you don't necessarily have to have decentralized governance. And I would prefer to use the term distributed, because if you don't have a governance mechanism that is, semi democratic or a republic type of voting system, it's it's not a decentralized method of governing it. You don't get a say, you don't get a vote. But I also tend to believe that it, just like in politics, and I've said this before, not 90% of the time people don't care and they're not paying attention, and then 10% of the time they vote with their feet and vote for their best interest, not in the interest of the network.
Yeah.
And it's always about what's in my wallet, what are you doing for me?
Yeah.
So I'm torn on that, and I'm torn on how a lot of these community working groups turn out. They're rather a disaster. And that's not pointing it at helium particularly. They have other issues that have nothing to do with the community working groups. I've heard they have several layers of administrative processes to get through before coming to a final conclusion, and that's from a corporatized sort of structure. So
Yeah, I agree. But I think like voting in general. I mean, even look at like voting in our election. I would say that the vast majority of people are voting on one or two issues that impact them most
yeah,
directly. Okay. Um, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what those are, but the fiscal, and for some people are more about humanitarian rights.
yeah,
But most people really it comes down to one or two issues, and that impact them most directly, right? And I'd say the same thing goes for these governance protocols. Like people have their own best interest, their own self-interest in mind. That's why I think it's really important, though, for all of these to have one or two people that are really, really dialed in, in that any particular project that can kind of be a voice and kind of be a face for the community that can explain, the changes that are coming up, because
yeah,
it's a lot to keep track of. I mean, look, people have lives. They have like families at home. They're working. They don't have time to read through all the details of every improvement proposal. So having one or two people that can stay dialed in all the time and help kind of steer the community, I think is important.
yeah. I think we've tried to do that as best we can.
Yeah. Someone asked, what about Hive Mapper? Well, should we talk about Hive Mapper? I just,
Sure.
I just, interviewed Ariel. They obviously don't have a very decentralized voting view when it comes to implementing implementing changes, MIPs, right? And I'll say that they'll present it, and then they'll say, hey, we want feedback from everybody, and then they might make a minor tweak here or there. But I think their standpoint is kind of what you said, is that, well, everyone's just going to vote with their own self-interest. That while that may be true, it is still a DePIN project. It's a crypto project.
Yeah.
And I think it goes against, the nature of what this all stands for to an extent. So the positives I'll say is you can't deny the fact that there has been success. They've mapped 25% of the world's roads. They are focused on coming up with solutions that can make the data actionable. I don't have any doubt at all that Ariel and his team members are working hard.
Yeah, they're a good team, and I know they get a lot of flack.
Yeah.
But I've seen other crypto projects that put, make them look like the most perfect execution. I mean, people don't understand how lucky they are to have that type of team, where they show up with their game face on every day.
Yeah.
Have they made the right decisions all along the way, specifically when it comes to rewards, which is, one of the biggest. It's really the reason they have this project. Without crypto, without the token that you can print out of thin air with a few pieces of code, you don't have a project.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I know there's a comment here. Chad Dawson writes, Ariel just has very little respect and understanding of crypto. I think he's coming around to changing that opinion. I think he's seeing he's starting to understand that this is what holds the project together. This is what keeps the community engaged. I wish he would take it to heart a little bit more, but I cannot stand when I hear someone in leadership positions in a crypto project say, "Oh, it's only about the utility for us. We don't care about the token." Yeah, it's like, basically telling the community, "Hey, your effort has zero value to us. We don't care if it goes down."
Yeah. He's been very outspoken that he himself has not sold any tokens that have been granted to him through token unlocks. I would find it hard. I'd be hard pressed to believe he doesn't care about the price of honey. At some point he will. Okay. But as far as going towards, we can talk about the fleet thing, right? He wants to.
Let's
um,
talk about the sell-offs first.
what's that?
This is something. Let's talk about these circulating rumors about employees selling and about HiveMapper also selling to raise money. Now, I have not seen any concrete evidence presented to me. I have not gone out and looked for these events, so I couldn't tell you either way.
Mhm.
But if I'm wrong on this opinion, uh, correct me. But
Yeah.
nobody said anything really about employees selling their tokens. It's not about if they sell the tokens that have been promised to them, because it's kind of within their right to do so unless it says in their contract that they can't.
Right.
Okay, so if look, someone makes 90 grand, 100 grand in San Francisco, doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
If someone has to sell their tokens to, pay for a doctor's appointment, fix their car, I don't care. And all these people saying they're selling their tokens, they've been, these people saying that have also been selling their tokens. And the issue is not with them selling their tokens, it's with the token unlocks being
Yeah.
being released within, I think it's 3 years for the Hive
Yeah.
Mapper team.
Yeah.
There is
So
no long term, there's nothing that holds their feet to the fire because of how quick 60% between the investors troughs and the employees troughs, that's that's in everyone's hands within 3 years. So yeah, if
yeah.
they sell off, if I start seeing sell-offs by the multi hundred thousands or millions, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
But
So
and go ahead.
no, I was gonna say. So sorry, I closed my window. There's I living in Chicago, man. You hear sirens go past all the time. So yeah. So the 20% going to investors, I imagine that there's been some selling from the investors. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be fully vested by the end of, is it this year? I think at the end of this year, the employees will be, or no, not the employees, the investors. So the employees, the way it works is once the employee starts working there, they have a 3-year schedule. So while all the employee, the 2 billion tokens will be technically unlocked by the end of 2025, a lot of those are going to empty seats. In other words, for future employees. So a lot of those won't actually, they're going to still be sitting there, but they're going to be granted to future employees. So that's the current employees aren't getting those 2 billion tokens by the end of 2025.
Mhm.
A lot of those are still going to be, distributed over time moving forward for years to come. So I think that should be clear. Now they're still technically unlocked, so they're going to figure into the total market cap because they will be in the circulating supply, if you will,
Mhm.
regardless.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to note. Now, I mean,
There's
yeah,
another
go.
point I wanted to make here
Mhm.
was that I think there's transactions posted. Now, personally, I'm not going to spend my time wading through someone else's, accusations. I would like to have, concise, like put it together in a PDF file, say, this is the Hive Mapper wallet, the foundation. Here is the token, the wallet was sent to, here was the exchange. That's not happening. And there's a lot of people that are passing around a lot of hearsay. Now, I'm not saying one thing happened or another. I'm just saying throwing out links is
Yeah.
not very compelling. Put a case together if you want. Well, it works for them because it causes FUD. So let's say that Hive Mapper did sell off honey tokens to raise capital, and now the conspiracy is that they're going broke, they're going to go out of business. I don't understand who's jumping to that conclusion. We don't have solid information there to base that on.
Yeah.
So is it possible? Sure. And the reality of it is, startups go through trying times, and you're seeing these people in the community. This is one of the other things why I had to just kind of step away from all this. Seeing the people in the community who, at the first hint of hardship, they have this emotional reaction of outrage and say it's over, it's done. Token price went down, project's dead. No liquidity, project's dead. Didn't get my hardware in time. I'm not rich.
Yeah.
Project's dead. It's rug. It's so petulant.
Yeah.
But it resonates. The FUD spreads like wildfire. But
yeah,
it's a lot of people complaining and posing no real solutions, and some of these complaints are just there's really no argument to be made behind them.
I don't. I'd be hard pressed to say that they're going broke. I mean, they just invested a ton of money into. If you watch my interview with Ariel, like we went into the manufacturing process of the B, like they just invested a ton of money into their infrastructure to automate the manufacturing process of skill production. So I don't think that's the case at all.
I don't think it is either. But
yeah.
there's, even if they were having a hard time with their budget, startups go through this, and the fact that they have an avenue to bring in more money. If this is the argument that you're making, the conspiracy, the fact that they have an avenue to pull in more funds when it's needed, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But, I don't like them selling off the token because it makes, my share go down.
Yeah. And like there is a lot of talk about the drivers that are selling weekly. Look, I've had a fleet for a long time. I put pre-orders in April 2022, the first day they opened, right? So I've started building my fleet. I think my first driver is the number 6 driver in Chicago. So it's like very beginning stages. And I always told everyone in my fleet, like, look, you can sell if you need the money, but we are very early stages in this project. Like, I think it'd be better if you held. But that's what I'm doing. But it's up to you what you want to do. Like it's your money. The drivers that held, through the days where we got 1 cent per honey token, we're very happy. I think y'all like we need to be patient here because we haven't seen a full bull run yet. If you look at what happened, if you look at the last bull run, there's a ton of upside that's possible here. Now, I don't think the upside, personally, I don't think the upside from current prices on HiveMapper is as high as, say, like a Demo or a GeoNet, just because the market cap is a lot larger already.
Yeah.
And there's a much bigger supply. But I do still think like I'll be fully transparent. Like I have sold some honey tokens back when the Coinbase listing happened. I sold, I think, 15% of my total earnings. And generally I do. When a major exchange listing happens like that and you see something pump like it did, I sold like 33 cents. I timed the top and I sold
offloaded on them.
Yeah. But I'm holding the rest because, I am bullish about, what's coming. But yeah, I think price, the market conditions fix a lot of shit. If all of a sudden market conditions improve and the price of honey goes to, say, 50 cents, not saying that's going to happen. I think it's possible for sure. All of a sudden people aren't complaining anymore. Like everyone's like, everything is great. And I think that's part of the reason why they're going to fleets, though, is they want to diversify a little bit so they don't have just crypto people. Because we saw this with Helium. When the bear market hit, their deployments basically dropped off. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. But the issue I take with that is that now they have to produce this product that is now they're straddling 2 horses. They have to produce a product for mapping. They have to produce a separate one that gives you all this fleet functionality and on top of mapping. And look, I'm not so confident in the execution after what we've seen with the HTCS, as well as now we're seeing these massive delays with the B.
Yeah.
Are you telling me the B is going to be modular and flexible enough that you can implement all those features on, and it's going to be such a great product
Yeah.
that people are going to just want to buy it for the sake that it's a good product,
Mm-hmm.
and they won't care about the tokens? You think they won't care? They say, oh, you know what? I have a wallet somewhere with crypto in it. I should check the price and probably sell. I mean, this is a little far fetched for me.
Yeah.
Also, the amount of effort and resources to building a separate product line. Okay, I hope they can do it. I hope it succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
It's an idea. It may be a good idea, but this complicates things here.
It does, and they
So
already announced.
I hope this is not necessarily just for the sake of, the honey token
Mhm.
being, just these drivers earning for their fleets, but not, not selling token. It's kind of silly.
Yeah. Well, they've already announced, right? So a couple things, and I want to get to some of the stuff in the chat too about the B, but they already announced that they're starting to cut off. They're going to be cutting off HTC production and moving fully over to the B, which we predicted. We talked about this a while ago that this was going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And people that don't want to switch over can get a refund on the HTC orders, whatever. But having two different manufacturing lines is not efficient, so it makes sense to switch over. But to your point, Joe, like they've put themselves in a position where like they have to execute on the B, and if they don't, I mean, the project is completely dependent now on them shipping a fully functional product. I mean, everything hinges on this now.
Yeah.
They have given themselves zero margin for error at this point. So I surely.
Well, when you say shipping a fully functional product, how are you? This goes back to my whole thing. Like everyone talks about the B, like it's a saving grace and it's a silver bullet and it's gonna make all the problems go away. Are we talking about the community, them receiving it, and it causes a spurt of growth? It causes some sort of map correction, or what's it going to do? That's going to be, I mean, you got like 30,000 cameras on the road already that are HTCs that have to age out.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how this fixes the problem overnight.
Yeah. No.
Other than shipping, people want to get their hands on a camera.
So what I mean by fully functional is not the HTCS. The HTCS was a massive failure. I mean, it's like the unspoken thing, right?
Yeah.
But again, like the HTCs that are on the road now are going to be phased out. What I mean by fully functional product is that they can scale production, that it's going to actually work, because let's talk about getting into mass, they get into fleets. These big businesses are not going to, fart around with a messed up product. Like if it doesn't work, they're done, right? And you're going to see map production drop off a cliff if they don't ship a product that works. So I that's what I mean by a fully functional product. Like they've got to hit this thing. Like they've got to really succeed with the manufacturing of this new product. Like if they don't, I mean, the project could die. I mean, it will actually. Like they've got to make it work, and that's why going to some of the comments in the that I'm seeing over here is like 2025. I'll like, look, if you watch my interview with Ariel, I asked him, I said, so, Q3 would be set into September. You'd have to ship at least some bees. Are we still looking at October, November, December into 2025? There's a little bit of hesitation there. And he said, one of the things they're dealing with, and he's sent up some tweets about this as well in the last couple of days, is with the commercial fleets, they have to make sure they get this thing right. And they're finding that it's been a little bit more difficult than anticipated. So I would expect that we're going to see shipment dates slip. I think we're going to see that for sure, which is not rare in the DePIN space, but I think we will. Go ahead.
I guess we're doing this in Elon time, right?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see it the ship. So yeah, they've got it. They really have to execute on the B. I hope they do. I think they will. Even though they messed up in the HCCS, I think in this case they're being really careful and not starting to ship a product. I think with HCCS you could make the point that they started shipping a product for us to be kind of their guinea pigs. It was early in the project. There was a lot less contributors. This thing was not on, wasn't on the same stage it is today. Now, like they're under the microscope, right?
Dude,
I think they know
the
that
HTC was a pain to use in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And when it's the beginning of a project, it doesn't matter. I mean, you remember what we went through syncing the blockchain every day, but it was a rush. When the first days of Helium, it was like, this is all you want to do all day, and you don't care how painful it is, and how much crap you got to figure out. But when you're not making $100 a day or whatever, now it's different. Now you don't care to put that kind of effort into it. Now it's a marathon, not a race. So they don't get the forgiveness that they did. I get it, and it's hard. It's hard to make hardware for something so so detailed of a product that is the end result. But one of the biggest issues with crypto projects and why they get a bad rap as a scam is because of making promises that they can't keep.
It's true. I do think when they announced, the production schedule, they probably thought they would be able to hit that. I don't think that they did it nefariously. The Q3 thing, they should have gotten ahead of this a lot sooner because, a lot of the community thought July, right? And when they saw Q3, I think they knew immediately it was not going to be July. They should have said end of Q3 is what they should have done that. I think that was a mistake on their part.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that here's what I think will happen. I think they're going to ship a handful of them by the end of September to testers to be able to say, hey, we hit the end of Q3 thing, like we fulfilled our promise there. But I don't think we're going to see production scale up probably in October. I mean, originally we were thinking October. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that slipping till later in the year, and especially into 2025. It would not shock me one bit. But also what you said about earning $100 a day, and dude, at the very beginning of this, like we weren't making, like, because the price of honey was really low for a while there.
When you're the first in, you are scrambling and clawing at every last cent you can get, every last token you get your hands on, and trying to figure out every last detail of operation and your tricks to make it work. And you don't mind because you're gonna get something out of it. But when you have you're making just enough of a, and look, most people aren't looking at this as a long-term thing. It's like I'm going to hold my tokens. They're seeing I get $10, $15 a week if I'm lucky, right? So they're not trying to scrape every cent, and they're looking at it as if a lot of this hassle is no longer worth my time because the dollar amount doesn't justify it. And yes, it's short-sighted thinking, but ultimately that's how many people view this, and that is why their sentiment, their attitude towards the project has so greatly changed. And I've tried to express this to HiveMapper in my my most sincere and pragmatic way, but the community does not like a moving target. They don't want to be told one thing and a month later it changed. And that's the token debacle. Like the payouts that has had that was worse than I expected this to be.
Yeah, no, complete debacle.
What the hell was that?
And I did press Ario a little bit on that in my interview. He admitted, which I was shocked, but he did admit that fell on him, that they messed up on specifically the regional progress calculation. They did it more quickly than they should have, which that's been my biggest constructive criticism for them. Really, is like, look, I understand some of the MIPs they put into place, but they did it way too quickly, and they cut rewards way too quickly. And I think they're sick of dealing with the emotion of the crypto industry, but they also need to realize, like, we're the big reason why they are where they are today. Without us, they wouldn't be as successful as they are. And looking at the fleet to individual or crypto contributor, going forward, he was saying that he expects there to be 60% commercial fleets, 40% crypto contributor. He said it will take some time to get there. And this is straight from his mouth in the interview I did with him like 3 days ago. I anticipate that we could have a period of time not too far off where he will realize that we as crypto contributors probably are more instrumental than he expected.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it at all. But we'll see what happens. But like, for them to scale up fleet, I mean, it's going to take them some time to do that.
Yeah. Well, when the dash cam goes out on a fleet vehicle, who's ultimately has interest in getting that replaced? Is it the vehicle driver, or is it whoever owns that fleet of vehicles for a company? It's whoever owns it, and they're going to get to it in their own sweet time.
Sure.
So I just don't see the type of dedication coming from, look, if it falls off and hits the dash and lands in some Cheetos on the floor, do you think that driver is going to care in many cases? No. I mean, what I'm getting at here is that if you're going after fleet drivers, you're not going to get the dedication, the attention that those of us who are crypto enthusiasts give this, the device and put in the effort to actually, mapping.
Yeah.
So sure, it'll work, but it's not, you're not going to have people coming in the Discord and forming a community, or adding liquidity to your pool, or reporting bugs and errors with it. It's people with fleets, not unless their boss is giving them honey tokens and they care about it.
That's right.
Not, so
I
just don't want to put so much hope into this whole concept.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, small, I don't want to call it gaps, but like, just there's potholes along the way. Yeah. That you can fall into.
I think that's a legitimate concern. I brought that up to a couple of his team members about if the driver doesn't have any stake in the image quality, why would they make sure that the camera placement's great? I mean, that's a serious threat for sure. I see a message over here about the Demo AutoPi using a SIM card. I know this is kind of off topic, but they're saying, can we use a Helium Mobile SIM card to replace it in the AutoPi? I don't think so, because I believe that those SIM cards are on a specific Twilio plan that allows you to move from one network to the other. So if you're like an AT&T, you can move to, T-Mobile. They basically have access to all the different cell carriers through Twilio on their data plan for Demo. So I don't think so. Yeah. So someone said they don't believe in Demo. Look, I've talked to some people that don't. So he said, who's Who wants data from a 2009 Honda Accord? So this is the thing. This is a big misconception about demo. So I guess we can change page real quick. Just talking about demo. I think there's a misconception that they're just taking vehicle data and selling it in masses. So the telematics data is a combination of both vehicle diagnostic data and driving patterns. But what their big goal is, and their focus is to create an ecosystem so that developers can build useful applications for vehicle owners to use. So it's more so about leveraging your vehicle data in different ways than just them selling off vehicle data in masses. I mean, they have a really solid team. So it looks like you met them too. I mean, they have a really solid team, and I do think they just surpassed 100,000 vehicles. They're adding a lot of vehicles. I do like Demo a lot. I think they have a ton of potential, but it's really going to come into them. The next step is them launching a lot of useful applications, so that us as vehicle owners can monetize that data. Now, the point I'll make though is for vehicle manufacturers, telematics data is expected to be one of their top 3 revenue streams moving forward. More and more of these vehicle manufacturers are charging people to have different features in their vehicles and use their telematics data in different ways. So I think the telematics revenue stream is potentially massive, and Demo is building the largest vehicle agnostic database of telematics data that exists. And I think if they can get some useful applications built, we're going to start seeing that come to fruition. So
you can take these comments in the chat. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So someone asked, what are the most relevant factors for Demo earnings? I don't know if you mean by contributor earnings or if you mean revenue. So the Demo earnings as a contributor come down to baseline issuance. So basically, Demo is a set number of tokens set aside for weekly issuance to contributors. As more vehicles come online, those are split between more vehicles. But that's not what's going to keep the project going. That's really just an incentive to get people to connect their vehicles on the front end. Over time, as they build useful applications, as that data is used in different ways, you'll get distribution of Demo rewards from the revenue coming into the project. The revenue will take over those baseline issuance rewards. So the baseline issuance will continue to dissipate. The revenue will be the major driving factor to your rewards over time. I'm very bullish on Demo. I think that they have an amazing team. I think that for how many vehicles they've connected, I do think that not financial advice, we'll see a lot of appreciation in the price of Demo. We did in spring hit like 60 or 70 cents. And they continue to build. I mean, this team is at every major event. I've been to several different crypto events. They're everywhere. And they're very, very dedicated. They also extended out their token unlocks for employees, which I thought was really incredible. They haven't done a good job of really announcing that. They announced in like 2 different places, but they've extended out for a number of years their token unlocks for employees. They're very dedicated to that project, and they put their money where their mouth is. So I really am a big fan of that project. Congrats, Zerp Twerp, on getting your autopie. That's awesome, man. Someone said, is there a way to verify that Ariel hasn't sold any tokens yet? Look, we don't know which wallet is his, but you can go on chain. You can look at the 2 different wallets where there's 2 billion tokens, and the wallets they're going to. I personally would find it hard to believe that he would lie about that, knowing that everything's on chain. And if at some point someone was able to trace his wallet, they'd be able to call him out. So I have to say, I do believe that he hasn't sold any, that he has been granted. He's been very specific about saying granted. So I think he's also mapped. I wouldn't be surprised if he sold some of his mapping rewards, because he's been very, very particular about saying, I have not sold any tokens granted to me. But I would find it hard to believe that he would lie about that, knowing that everything on chain is traceable to an extent. So
Yeah, I got another message
Mm-hmm.
in our group chat, and yes, they sell some each month. Okay, so I'm just curious what point that you guys are trying to make about this.
That employees are selling?
Are they not allowed to? Oh no, it's the Hive. They're claiming it's the Hive Mapper Inc. wallet. So
Oh,
they sell tokens each month. Where they have investors, they have people who are like, you know, advisors. I don't know what they paying consultants and tokens. I don't think with that amount, but I mean, I'm trying to understand what all the outrage is about.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. A lot of people have been talking about, staking tokens on HiveMapper. Look, if there's a purpose for staking, I'm not opposed to it. But my question would be, what is it? Is the purpose of staking just to prevent selling? In that case, I'm not really for it. But if it's like, some of these decentralized GPU projects, the purpose of staking is that if you don't have proper uptime with your GPU, then they can, take some of your staking away, um, to incentivize
Yeah,
people to have uptime. Like if there's a reason for the staking that pushes the project forward, that has utility behind the staking,
yeah.
I'm all for it. But I'm not really for staking in the purpose of just staking tokens so that you don't sell them.
When one of the things that I find like staking very useful for is if you have a project that runs on commodity hardware that is like very common to come across. Well, if that's the case, and people find out in the beginning, you're going to have a massive onboarding all at once for people who are just in it for the token, and because they don't have any vested interest now, when they don't have any skin in the game other than, oh, I have tokens, but that doesn't keep them from pulling all that hardware off the network at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the case of commodity hardware, staking provides stability to networks. It really keeps people who just have a bunch of excess hardware from coming on, earning a bunch of tokens, and then then they turn off, and you have a skeleton of what was once your network. I'm opposed to having staking used in cases that you don't need it, and like even in the case I just named, it's still like, for me, I don't want to call it a Ponzi, and there's also like no such thing as free money. In the beginning of crypto, maybe they'll just anyone will let you on board on any network with whatever, but no, it's these days, you know, you don't just get to mine without having uh, some sort of trade off, some sort of in investment, or providing a valuable service in return for the network. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the idea of let's just have staking, and people who stake will earn more, because you're delaying an inevitable, you know, what's an inevitable sell off, and it's going to be that much worse from when the people who stake decide to dump those excess tokens that they made in earnings from both regular earnings on top of that staking multiplier.
Well, we saw that with
Um,
helium.
and yeah,
Remember that?
but it's the reason helium did it, in my opinion. Well, is very obvious in numerous reasons. If you were to look at the way all those events up to that massive $55 mark lined up, it was. I don't think the stars aligned. They were put there. You had so many events, and when you talk about a decentralized architecture and routing with a network with, we were up to like 200,000 Raspberry Pis. Have, some of these only have like 2 gigs of RAM. Some of the, was the the Rock Pi or Rock chip nodes, if they only have like 1 gig of RAM, and they have a blockchain on top of this mile long gossip table entry. Like, it did not make sense in a scalable architecture. But what they always told us was it's for your it's for decentralization. We're trying to keep the network decentralized. And then when they brought on validators, which is, it should have been a tiered architecture to begin with, because that would allow it to scale. When they brought on validators, all these tokens got locked up, and that further shot up the price. When we had already seen listings, we had already seen this massive burn of HNT to make data credits to onboard gateways. A bunch of people buying it just because they wanted to be on the investment, and they couldn't buy a gateway. I mean, there were so many things in that whole. I think it was very well planned out. Like I said, I'm not sure Helium could organize a 2-car funeral, but they might be able to pull off a bank heist. That being said, oh, by the way, for the decentralized network that it was of 200,000 Raspberry Pis and other single board computers, over 60% of the validators, I believe, were owned, or they were stood up by a particular individual who was a part of Helium Inc. before. So very decentralized. Now, what the other point I was going to get to is the staking that they're doing now for the vote multiplier. It's essentially so the aristocracy, am I using that word correctly? The people who are part of the club that you're not a part of, they're going to keep making the decisions. They're going to have the whale votes. That was what the land rush was for. Because if you weren't paying attention and you didn't stake during the land rush, you didn't get nearly as much of a voting weight as the other individuals. So that whole system for staking is set up specifically so they can make the decisions that they want to make and put their thumb on the scale as they so choose, when they could have had a much simpler voting system where you get a checks and balances sort of deal. You could do what they were doing with weight by HNT in your wallet and whatever other tokens, and then one hot spot, one vote on top of that, and you could have votes in both camps, and whatever, one validator, 100 votes, I don't know. The point being here is that there are other mechanisms they could have used that would have been more fair to the community. They chose this one because they wanted only people who are whales and have vested interest to make the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, the staking fee for validators was what, 10,000 HNT. So there's a time period where that wasn't a lot of money. It became a lot of money. But I mean, I think to be a validator, it made sense to have some sort of skin in the game. But when they moved to Solana is when everything got unstaked, right? And that's when we saw that massive sell-off. But I also say, like, I think now with the mobile network, like, they are generating actual revenue. Like, that's why I do remain bullish on HNT to have a comeback for this market cycle. But there are certainly things that they did not do great. But they also, you get to realize, like, they're also kind of like creating the playbook for DePIN. Like, they are the trailblazer. Most of these DePIN projects that we're working with today, got motivation from Helium. Like, that was their kind of the inspiration into moving into this space. So I think they did a lot of good. They certainly made some mistakes along the way, though. There's no doubt about it. I think your feeling on that's well documented. But
well, it's a trend in crypto. It's not, I mean, I gave him a lot of grief along the way, and now I'm seeing others repeat the same crap.
Yeah,
and it's just like, how do you it's disappointing. It really is, because it kind of feels like you've seen people get taken advantage of. You know, the just blatant incompetency from certain people. It's like, what are you doing, bro? You trying to tank the project?
I think that the project grew way faster than they anticipated.
I'm not talking about Helium in this case.
Okay.
I'm talking about others. Yeah, Helium found themselves in a peculiar situation. Like, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt where I can. Yeah. But man, there's so many things that I look back at and I'm like, you know, like I mentioned, you know, I can't fathom who thought that. Well, I want to know where their long-term planning was when it came to scaling the network. Like, you're not going to scale a network, and I'm sure they didn't expect to have even 50,000 gateways online by the end of 2021, was it? But come on, you got to, if you're designing a network to be global, it has to be scalable, and you design it. You design the architecture to be scalable out of to scale from the beginning, to be like elastic and flexible, so you can build on it as you need, and you know, potentially, you know, have that big explosion of use. And they did not do that. Well, the other thing that, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, I think it's like very many startups, right? A lot of startups, and I've worked in the startup space, is we will, you know, figure shit out as it comes, right? As we grow, the growth they experienced because of DePIN was unlike anything we've ever seen before. So I agree with you. Like, they should have planned better for the type of growth they saw, but I think the growth, I don't think anyone could have anticipated the growth that they saw. Like, there is
absolutely, yeah, you're right,
out of nowhere. So, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, hindsight, of course, they should have done a much better job in planning to scale better than they did. I mean, I'll let you. Like,
I mean, in any, as a network engineer, this is the kind of stuff that I plan to scale as needed. In, you know, in enterprise networks, when you're building software and you're integrating it with systems, you plan it to scale. And it just, like, I don't know what happened there. And the other thing that really bothers me is how long the gaming went on for, how blatant it was. And I know someone that is cued in with them got caught there. And there's people who have admitted it. And look, we've seen how rampant it was, and they tried to just like say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that much of the earnings. It was like 20-30% of the earnings some days were being gamed and then dumped on the exchanges. And it went on, and then they did a secret denialist whole debacle, and it was my you know, my distaste for that is because I believe that there were so many people on the inside gaming the system, and that's why it was swept under the rug, so they can continue to do it. And then, oh, okay, we're gonna fix it, and it took forever. I mean, I understand it was a very hard solution to solve. I mean, issue to solve. There were so many ways you could game it, but the fact that they drug their feet on it for as long as they did, when it was so blatant and obvious right in front of us, was just, you know, and basically told people who talked about it, you know, you're making a big deal out of nothing. No, that's 30% of the earnings of the network that day gone to gamers, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So somebody just commented over here, by the way. The tech is great for high mapper. Let's not pretend we're not here for the alpha. I don't know if you want to throw that on there, but it's a decent buy still. Look, I'll tell you this much, and I put a video out on this. I am in the belief personally, and no one has a crystal ball, that I think the market's going to have a leg up here. I mean, I think we're going to see the money printer get turned on again, going into election season. I think we're going to have rates drop. I have been adding to my conviction plays. I have I'll tell you what those are. Honey's one of them. Okay, I obviously have a large fleet I've been holding. I have GeoNet is one that I've added to recently. And after this, Joe, I want you to tell us what your feelings are too on this. But so Honey, GeoNet, Demo, obviously. Arweave is another one I like for storage networks. I love Arweave. I'm not a big fan of the other storage networks, frankly. We have Render. I think Render is going to have a nice resurgence as well. They have an amazing team. Nasana, and I still am a holder of HNT, and I have a good size position in that project as well. The one I've added to though really recently is GeoNet. I continue to add to that position. I think it's in like ridiculously undervalued. They just haven't done a good job of marketing. But yeah, and Arweave is another one I've been adding to a lot recently as well. It seems like other people viewing are big fans of Arweave in the comments. But not to say there aren't other projects I'm looking at, but those are my main positions at this point. And I am basically, I've consolidated into my conviction plays. Joe, what are your conviction plays right now where you have investment?
GeoNet, HiveMapper. I'm loyal to Crank because they are about as perfect as it gets when it comes to execution, and it's trying to run with the concept that so many people think is dead, but they're doing good, and they're run it like a business. So I like what they're doing. This whole thing with the carrier offload through Wi-Fi Passpoint, I think we're going to see some partnerships coming down the pipeline from Hive for Helium and XNet, and I think there's some other players I've heard about that will likely get offloading partnerships, which is good. It's good for the space overall. Once again, you guys have seen me give XNet a lot of grief this last month. I mean, numerous live streams, and I try so hard not to go down that route, but that's when you really have no other options other than pointing out the mistakes and ridiculing, because there's these people are absolutely deaf to any sort of reason and rationality. Like, there have been comments made in public by official team members that could land them in hot water with securities investigations, and they just people tell them, why are you saying that, dude? You shouldn't say, hey, bro, it's all right, DePIN, man. It's like anyways, the whole point being here is I'm so glad that they can apply a concept where fiat is perfectly acceptable and use it in DePIN and give you an unregistered security. It's going to look great. We're on our way to the moon. And yeah, wonderful. So when the telcos have to start, the telco carriers, they might start using gateways that are in good locations. All the thousands of Wi-Fi hotspots that people bought and put at their house so their neighbors could use their Wi-Fi, they don't pay for residential data offload. They pay for public and business areas where it's either congested or there is very poor reception from the cellular towers. And this is something that's in demand because of interest rates and the economy, and just how hard it is to actually plan 5G coverage and get the points of presence at, well, cellular towers stood up wherever you need for that complete 5G coverage. I mean, you need an alternative method to bring that load off the network. So Passpoint, offloading through Wi-Fi through a protocol called Passpoint, is what the carriers have all started to use, and they will do it in business locations and pay out fiat money. So it's forget what I was getting at here, but yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah. So there's going to be some people who are sore about not earning with their helium hotspot, even though they have already earned plenty for not doing anything. XNet, there's a good chance that they're going to see a partnership based on everything that I'm hearing, but that doesn't mean that all is forgiven and tickets haven't been open for 8 months here, and payouts haven't been late numerous times and wrong at that, and the whole litany of stuff that I've gone through before. And I'll leave it at that. It's
okay.
You can get away with a lot of crap in crypto.
Yeah, I haven't dove into XNet like you have. Like you're very ingrained in that project, in that community, so I can't really speak to that too much. Here's what I will say though is, compared to my my strategy in the last market cycle, I wanted to have investment in like everything that it was like a shiny new toy. I was like, I want to throw money at this and that and everything, and it don't get me wrong, it was fun when the market was going up because like this day this one would pump and this day this would pump, and so it's exciting in the bull run. What wasn't exciting though is when the market dropped out and I couldn't manage my positions, and I'm like sitting on positions that have dropped 95%. I'm like, why the fuck did I buy that one? Like, I don't even remember why I bought that project. Like this market cycle, I've taken a very different approach in that I've consolidated into the plays that I have taken the time to really, really research, like backwards and forwards, that I have true conviction in. And that's going to make it a lot easier to manage my positions in my profit taking strategy throughout the market cycle. And, it's really hard not to want to chase, right? When you see a project that you did look at and it starts pumping, and but you're not gonna be able to hit all of them.
Well,
I mean, that's the fact.
I have to say, without that very without that large amount of diversification in your portfolio, just a spray and pray type of deal, you're not going to ride the wave of dumb money that pumps into the market, because the dumb money isn't playing around with the projects we are. I hate to say that. You're doing the smart and responsible thing, but you won't see any meme coin pumps, which isn't, well, you have a couple meme coins, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, but not to say that the DePIN sector, I think, can pump when retail comes. And I think about this for the retail investors that are coming in. Yes, you're going to have your degens that are going after meme coins, but I think there are a lot that are going to look for something that resonates with them, creating a decentralized map and seeing that they've, at that point, let's say they map 30% of the world's roads, and it's a crypto Google Maps, if you will. I think that will resonate with people. People will want to buy that token, right? You see there's 100,000 vehicles connected to DEMA and they're monitoring telematics data. Like that resonates with the average person. So for the non-degen people that are coming into the space, I think DePIN is going to be one of those sectors that they can look at and be like, okay, there's like utility that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think these projects can do well as retail comes in. But I will say, like, if you get a 10 to 20x on a project, like taking some profits isn't a bad idea to take some money off the table. I mean, people will give you shit for taking profits. And it doesn't mean that you don't believe in a project, but in bull runs, things get very overvalued. And I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Like things get valued way higher than they should be. And by taking profits doesn't mean that you don't believe in the projects. It just means that you're, looking at market conditions. And again, I said this earlier, like there's no award for watching your portfolio explode and then watching it detract. And then, you could be waiting 2-3 years through a bear market on these positions before, you see any prices anywhere near what you saw before. And none of that's even guaranteed. So for me personally, I have goals outside of crypto. I'm not planning on divesting out of the market completely, but I do have, personal goals that I do plan on allocating capital to diversify for sure. But I'm also only invested in plays that I truly believe in, that I've done my research that I think are doing something real at the same time.
Yeah. And, one thing I like to mention to people who, are new or maybe have, been around for a year or two, the people that I've met who have truly, who have made a substantial amount of money in crypto, like I'm talking over $1 million, usually like over 3, 4, 5 million. They are the ones who have been in it for years, like over 8 years at this point, I would say is most of them. And they have had like brass balls about it. Their conviction is mostly around Bitcoin, really. And I've seen a lot of them, they like to mine altcoins and convert it into Bitcoin. But, they sit on those altcoins waiting for them to pump. And then, when it feels right, they convert, don't look back, put in their Bitcoin and just let it ride. And none of them really, they talk about they do talk about their lucky stories. Like, yeah, one time I hit a block and I made 10 grand this day. And it's like, but it's not what got them. They didn't get one lucky, big event that took them to where they are now. That lucky event was a very small step in their overall long game process.
Yeah. Someone asked what we think about XRP. I hold XRP. I have a small position in XRP I've held onto for years. It's already a big market cap. I see people that are like talking about it, going to like $100. I think it can do well. I mean, I'm still holding a position, but it's not like one of my big positions, but I do have exposure to it,
Yeah,
it's
sure. One of those ones that you hold on to because a lot of other people buy into their whole spiel and their elevator pitch.
I mean, apparently they have a lot of inroads with a lot of like huge financial firms, like Web2 firms. So, and they just won that. They basically are out of that SEC case now. So, like, I think it's something that could do well, but it's not something that I think I'm putting a lot of eggs in for this market.
Well, here's the thing: it's not a decentralized blockchain. It is a very much centralized blockchain, which kind of that's not a new thing in traditional finance. That's not a new thing in the corporate world to have a private blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you would not necessarily call their blockchain private per se, but there is no need for a consensus mechanism that is I don't have the word I'm looking for, that is adversarial. There's no adversarial consensus mechanism because all the validators or all the servers are controlled by them. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, why do they need XRP tokens to say who from the damn what is a massive world financial system? What's it called? The banks and the intercontinental not ICE, but the exchanging between different countries. Why do they need the freaking blockchain to begin with? Or why do they need the token? They're not going to be paying gas fees to exchange that between banks. It's all to get your money, right? It's not decentralized. But hey, if they win, it looks great for crypto. That's wonderful. I hope they succeed. But they're all I think they're old. If I recall correctly, they're old. What they started out of was they were competing with PayPal, and they didn't really get to where they wanted to go. They would never really had a whole lot of success. So they did what a lot of people do when they don't get success for many years. They decide to apply crypto to it. Yeah. And that gives them much more runway.
What do you think about Caspa?
Is Bobby asking that? Chad Dawson?
Someone said that I need to tell you about my skincare routine with moisturizer. That's why I was dying. I don't know who that is, but that's hilarious.
Oh yeah, the money shot. No, look, the tech of Caspa is like, it's actually, from what I understand, it's very good, but this is over my head. So I'm taking this from Retro Mike Tech, probably the most sophisticated and well-read YouTuber in the entire crypto space. In fact, the YouTubers who are even much larger than I am take their cues from him and his channel with 4,000 subs. But he's on point. He's very good. Anyways, it is a technology that I guess the hardware hasn't really come of age from the way I understood that he explained it. The hardware is not where it needs to truly be, and it won't be within the next. It will be like towards the end of this next decade. So with that, the emissions its schedule is like crazy. It's very much front loaded, like extremely front loaded, to the point where it's like the next, don't quote me on this, but the next like 2, 3, 4 years, you're looking at only gas fees are going to be paying for the miners to support the blockchain, to mine. Well, you better get a lot of customers real soon. I mean, that's all it comes down to. If nothing else, Caspa will go down in history as, they put together the right technologies of protocols to make a different type of proof of work algorithm. It was Ghost Dag, I believe, and maybe a fork will catch on. I don't know. Have we seen what is promised in throughput per second, transactions per second? I don't pay close enough attention, so I don't know what it is as of lately. But the whole thing is, like we discussed earlier in the stream, Solana has the market cornered, and DePIN are really outside of the NFT crowd. DePIN's the only one who is building applications on chain that are generating significant usage of it, right? I mean, there's a few other ones, but I couldn't really tell you. I've not heard, other than like the centralized processing is still DePIN. I mean, there's all these different dApps, but of all the ones I've heard, there's not one that really sticks out to me and it says, that's a really good idea that I think is going to catch on.
Yeah.
And they all, I wouldn't be able to tell you one right now that, we need to use on a day-to-day basis. So DePIN is really the one who the sector of crypto that is generating the use of the layer 1 blockchains, and the vote has already been cast. It's mostly Solana that they favor, but it seems like Polygon's coming in second. But Solana's certainly pulling out ahead. So all this, the proof of work crowd, what do they actually build on the blockchains, the many, many blockchains that they have taken part in supporting over the years with their GPUs and ASICs and CPUs? Nothing. So they it's a lot of rah proof of work, but there's nothing. Nobody used this. A lot of these, and these last many that we hear, like I think another one is lithium. Okay, maybe it's a good blockchain. I don't know, but is it going to be used? And I just don't see what the draw to proof of work actually is at this point. When it's not as fast. In the case of Bitcoin, it absolutely makes sense. Like Bitcoin, Litecoin, like I get it. Even though it's not decentralized, when you have 3 or 4 pools that make up the vast majority of the hash rate on the network.
Yeah.
Like if you can take those pools down in a coordinated attack, you might be able to do a 51% attack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not decentralized, and they can scream that all day. Well, the miners are in different locations in the world. Okay, well, if I can hit that pool,
yeah,
or if that pool tries to do a 51% attack. So, anyways, point being here,
I look as far as layer ones go, like I still am holding a handful, right? I've got, I obviously have Ethereum, I have Solana, I do have XRP, I have still holding on some Elrond Gold and Multiverse X, I guess now. I have some Cardano, I have some Casper, not Casper, but Casper. I think, but I mean, I have a number of different layer ones, but those aren't my big positions right now. My big positions are in DePIN. Obviously, I do hold a lot of Bitcoin for the long run. The layer twos last time did really well. I'm really in it for the utility plays this bull cycle, and I think that a lot of these layer ones are not going to be around. I mean, I think I have some Cosmos too. So I think like you will see more cross chain or interoperability between blockchains for sure as we move forward. But I'm more interested in like where are they being built? Who's building on these blockchains? Oh, Phantom too. I own Phantom. I have a million different layer ones that I have like some investment in. But I'm more concerned about what's being built at this point. Like I think the day of like every layer one just like exploded. It was all based on potential and the future, but I'm really just like curious. Okay, I'm looking at who's building on on which blockchains, and the ones that see the most activity are the ones I'm interested in at this point.
Yeah, and I think the next, this next market cycle for certain, potentially next one, like when you have a first mover on a sector of the market and they pretty much corner that market, it's very hard to get them to release that stranglehold, whether it's intentional or not, whether it maybe the customers are just drawn to that, which is mostly the case here with Solana. Solana's not trying to stomp out competition as far as I see. It's just everyone prefers using it and they don't find any excitement on other chains. But unless they are a more sophisticated, type of crypto enthusiast like you find people in the chat, it's just, when we 10 years from now, it's going to be different. There's going to be reasons to, change from Solana that we can't foresee now, to not build on Solana. The same way, AWS was the first mover by they got a 3 or 4 year head start on the concept of cloud, and you couldn't beat them at first, but now there's other players, and it's there's still the elephant in the room. There's still the biggest player, but it's not it's not that basically default choice at this point.
Yeah,
there's there's way more consideration as to where you're going to go. Whereas right now, like the DePIN projects are like, we go to Solana because we'll have a liquidity pool and our whole token holders can actually sell off. Otherwise, if you can't sell off your tokens and bring in fiat, I mean, a lot of people don't care.
Yeah.
It's just, it might as well be like coins on a video game.
What one I would say a DePIN project that I think is emerging into a layer one type solution is Arweave. So that's one that I put a video out recently on. I'm gonna do a more deep dive video on, but like so Arweave started off as a decentralized storage network where they're doing permanent storage. So as opposed to like Filecoin, trying to think of some of the other ones out there. Storage, some people call it. So those entities were going after the temporary storage of AWS, Google Cloud, etc. But Arweave is going after permanent storage where you pay one time up front and your file is stored forever. And they have it set up such that you pay the fee that you pay up front is the cost of your storage for 200 years, and they extrapolate out like the decrease in storage costs over time. It's really, I mean, the model behind everything they've done is very well thought out. They also don't have like the same type of token explosion when it comes to supply over time like Filecoin has. I think Arweave is an incredible project, and they just had AO built on top of it, where now you can run smart contracts, and it's basically a decentralized global computer. You can run smart contracts using AI. Dude, it's like they are doing some massive things right now, and that's the position I'm adding to pretty aggressively. I started buying in at like $4. It was at $30, then around $20 right now. Like as it dips below $20, I'm adding to my position personally. I'm actually getting on a call with them on Thursday. I'm having a meeting with their team, not like an interview, but just like an introductory call. But that's something I'm going to put out some more content on. I think that Arweave has massive potential. Someone else believes that Arweave could be the future library for the internet. I think that's true. They're also storing like 85% of Solana NFT collections. They're storing all the data for like 20 different blockchains right now. They were doing, so they've been around for 6 years. They have had 14 minutes of downtime. It was like 6 days after their mainnet launch. They've had 100% uptime since. They're doing 1 billion transactions a month right now. I think Arweave is going to do massive stuff. The other one, GeoNet. So Joe, you said GeoNet, you changed your mind on GeoNet. You weren't a huge believer in it before. I'm curious what made you shift.
I seen the success and I started to understand, conceptually what it meant. But it was. Are you sure you want me to answer that question?
Well, I mean, you said that like you set up a GeoNet. Well, let me ask you this: you set up a GeoNet device on your roof this base station
roof
last week.
Grain elevator.
Yeah, how was that?
I'll show it to you.
How was that experience though? Setting the unit up. Curious.
The unit was easy enough to set up. The location is hold on. It is, I risk my life every time I go up there. So
it's a lot going on up there.
Yeah, the top right there is GeoNet, the flying saucer one. Then the top left is a Meshtastic node that's not crypto, but it's and it's LoRa, but not LoRaWAN. So it's uses LoRa modulation for basically it's a digital ham radio. You just stick it up there because it's cool and people want to build off of it. They build communication applications. They talk with a lot of people want to use it as an emergency backup in case, like, say whatever the case is, power goes out. That one will have backup. But as long as if you have line of sight with LoRa, you can go for a couple miles at least. But a lot of people use it for that kind of stuff, monitor IoT devices just because they want to, Anyways, and then that panel antenna that's for both helium and crank.
Okay.
And I'm using the crank image with helium Docker. So
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what we're talking about is that you put the GeoNet. Oh, the question was, what are you using for backup?
Backup as in like power?
I don't know. You mentioned something about a backup on your install. I thought.
For people use Meshtastic as like a backup type of communication service.
Okay.
Right. So I have a UPS, uninterrupted power supply, at the bottom, and I run PoE.
Yeah.
So I the modem router for the internet is on UPS, and then I have injectors, you guys. For I don't know what the deal is with the router they gave me, if there's like only one port, but yeah, I also have injectors plugged directly in. So it's you have battery backup, and that if the Meshtastic, it doesn't have to connect to the internet. It's just a a standalone sort of wireless routing that can send text and telemetry data.
Huh.
So it's and it forms a mesh. If you are able to talk to the guy down the road, and he's able to talk to the guy down the road, well, I'm also able to talk to him. Even if I can't talk to him directly, I talk to him through a middleman, right?
So it's like a P2P?
So, yeah, it's a wireless P2P.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Speaking of P2P, Streamer is another project. Is Streamer on your radar at all?
Yeah, it's a decentralized multicast overlay.
Yeah.
Is what you would call that in networking terms.
Yeah.
I looked at it before, and I like the idea, but now you're telling me that there's actually stuff taking place on there, which is good to hear.
Yeah.
I like the idea, but when I looked at their marketplace, and this was 2 years ago, it's like, what's actually going on here? Like, it's only as valuable as the data that people provide.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a way to extract that data in a manner that is worthwhile to either businesses or the general consumer. Now, I hear there are crypto projects that are using this for their data.
Yeah. So it's a P2P network. Yeah, it's P2P network, but Demo is built on top of Streamer since day one. So Streamer, and then just R is the project for if y'all want to look it up on like CoinMarketCap or something. They've been around for like 6 years, but they're a project as opposed to a lot that like do their mainnet launch and just like distribute their token, do their mainnet launch, and then kind of figure shit all out along the way. They didn't do their mainnet launch until this last spring. So they had a lot of different iterations, and they were building and building and building. They now have over 20 projects using their service. So basically, they're streaming data. So one of the dirty little secrets about a lot of these DePINs is that they're not really decentralized because they're using AWS or some centralized entity to either store their data or transmit their data. So Streamer kind of decentralizes that part of their stack, if you will. So with Demo, for example, if you had data coming off a vehicle that needed to get to other vehicles, that would, through Streamer, they'd be able to send it to the next vehicle. That would go to 4 more vehicles. That would go to 4 more vehicles, and so forth. So they're working with a lot of decentralized DePIN projects to help them get a fully decentralized stack, which I found really interesting. They're also launching some different gateway protocols that allow them to get in with Web 2 companies to allow them to get fully decentralized, but they're doing it in a way that the Web 2 companies won't have to understand smart contracts or crypto at all. They'll just be able to use like a full baked solution and be decentralized. I had a call with one of their developers like last week, and I was blown away by how much they're doing right now. So I think Streamer is going to be a pretty critical part of DePIN moving forward as far as getting some of these projects fully decentralized. They haven't had huge revenue to this point, but now they're starting to see it because of the amount of usage. They're also launching some protocols to stream video in a decentralized way. I thought was really interesting.
I have to look into this because last time I read about this, it was multicast, which is basically a networking protocol that replicates data. Mm-hmm. So, like, say that you have a server that's going to send out a basically live time television over like a TCP/IP, right? Do you want to send out 5 streams to all different destinations? Or, if you have the network for it, would you want to have just that server send out one stream and have the downstream routers replicate it to the end nodes? Mm-hmm. So that's essentially what multicast is. And now I'm seeing it's like pub sub, which it could be different. Yeah, I don't believe that's multicast, but I haven't worked with multicast in many years since I was in the Marine Corps. I don't always like mentioning that.
Why?
It's kind of because Marines do that crap all the time, and it's like hearing someone, I went to Yale, I'm better than you.
Hey man, I have much respect for it, man. That's awesome.
No, it was cool. There was the multicast feeds that we had were for drones. They weren't for actual like combat drones. They were for our field op training. Yeah. So you could just see if you pulled the feed and joined up to it, you can see what they were looking at. But yeah, it was cool.
Well, I know streamers getting into video streaming, P2P video streaming, and I mean, I asked about like issues with latency, etc. He said that like the U.S. and Europe is really, really good. He said some of the third world countries or some of the countries that don't have great internet, it's a lot tougher. But we're running pretty long here. I to close things out though, like I do want to touch on a couple of things with GeoNet, and then one other project I do want to just mention real quick before we get into GeoNet is Exabits. Like I think that Exabits, they're doing massive things. They're aggregating GPU resources, and they are going after independent data servers, but they're going after really high-end NVIDIA GPUs. They're working with a lot of the other projects in the space so like IONet, for example, is mostly a lot of their high-end GPUs are coming from Exabits. Like a lot of these projects that are well known, I think Aether is another one. They're using GPUs from Exabits. I ran into them at what was the crypto conference I went to recently in Austin, but I ran into them. I had never heard of them, and they've been very, very active, and they're launching their token in Q4. So that's one I'm keeping an eye on for sure. But as far as GeoNet goes, I did interview their founder, Mike, this week, and they, for one, Joe, you mentioned this earlier, they're getting cross-chain compatibility with Solana. That's a lot of liquidity into the ecosystem. The one thing he also mentioned is they have a partnership. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is using GeoNet right now, and they're about to make a public announcement about this. Like, and they're working with a lot of projects. They're adding compatibility with Peak Network too. So they're working with a lot of the DePIN projects on Peak, and they're like, the amount of partnerships they're adding is unbelievable. That's correct. Zerptwerp Exabits. That's the correct spelling. But yeah, so GeoNet is like the amount of usage they're getting on the network, the amount of revenue they're bringing in. Man, I think it's just like so criminally undervalued. But the problem they've had is they haven't done a good job of marketing. You
Yeah,
know,
they don't do a good job of marketing. I used to heckle them before because they do these token burns, and like I didn't understand that. If you look and see it's a token burn, you don't know why they're burning tokens. Are they burning tokens just to burn tokens? And I'd be like, oh, 1,000 tokens. That's 0.001% of the total supply. Who gives a shit? I didn't understand that it was actually burned because they're using, it's data.
yeah,
It's people are purchasing data, So yeah,
yeah,
marketing could be better, but
yeah. Their marketing's not great, and they haven't done. They don't have any major centralized exchange listings either. Um, I I I was talking to Mike. Mike was like, I mean, like the guy. By the way, Mike, the founder, he sold his last business for $50 million. Like this guy could be
Jesus.
sitting on an island somewhere. He's freaking brilliant. This guy's grinding. He was telling me about his upcoming travel schedule. The dude's like traveling to different countries for the next like 2 straight months for GeoNet. So he's the type of guy you want leading a project. Their token unlocks for employees are tied to milestones, and he's like, we haven't hit many of them yet, so they haven't even gotten many tokens at this point. Which I think more projects should do that, by the way, because like, hey, hold yourself
Yeah.
accountable. Like, I think that's awesome. It's a great project, man. And he was fighting me on the decentralized exchange listing thing. He's like, look, it goes against like the whole nature of crypto, and I'm like, you're not wrong. Like crypto is, you're supposed to like self custody, like the whole centralized exchange listing thing goes against the nature of crypto for sure. But it also gives people easy access to invest in your
Yeah.
project because a lot of people they're not in the weeds like we are every day. I was like, you have to, and I told them that I was like, you have to remember, like, we're in this shit every day. Yeah, we don't think it's hard to use a decentralized exchange, but for someone that's not in crypto, it's a lot harder than you think.
Yeah.
Like there's a learning
And
curve there.
ultimately, like I said, I want to talk about this in the beginning of the video. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I don't believe that people have deep convictions about what crypto is supposed to be. We can all tell you it's decentralized and for the people and governance and whatever. I don't know. You can talk about DePIN and your right to privacy, and when you talk about Bitcoin, your right to sovereign money, whatever you want to talk. But at the end of the day, people are, if it comes to violating the essence of what the project was supposed to be in the first place, I mean, to flip the network and make you're not going to get rich, but make a decent amount of money, they can give a shit. I mean, how many people were like talking about selling, this community members talking about selling helium to telcos, and then the other one is like selling, what is it, the Hive Mapper to Google. What did I say? Selling helium to the telcos. Yeah, I'm getting tired, man. I've been up
Yeah,
late
yeah.
and I gotta wake up at 5.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
I mean, there's always this talk about like what big company is going to come in and purchase the network, right? And my whole thing's kind of been, I thought this was to have our own network, to maintain our own like privacy and control over this infrastructure. But you guys are willing to just sell it, so you can make money off of it. It's the long term. There's no delaying short term gratification with some people. It's all about the art. It's not about the long term outcome.
For sure. I agree, man. Well, look, I'm glad we got on here. We've been on here for a while. Hey, you have a big fan. He said you have one of the best. You're one of the best YouTubers out there. Hopefully, I can get that status soon too. We'll see.
You know, Bobby is always entertained when I'm trashing projects and when I'm just dunking on people. And it's more and more, you know, I took a lot of my last video, like live streams down. I put them on private because I don't particularly like being this way. I don't, you know, it's not fun to be mean and have to like scold people like they're children because they're being irresponsible with other people's money.
Yeah.
And other people's resources. Like, but you know, it's I've been just so disgusted in this, and
yeah,
I'm glad we did tonight's show though. This is really good. And
for
thanks
sure
everyone for being here.
Been overdue, so we'll have to do it more frequently. Especially, like I do think in September, I think we'll see markets start moving up. Obviously, we'll see what happens, but rates are going to start getting cut. They're going to start turning that money printer on. You know they will going into election season for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks everybody for joining. We appreciate your viewership. And Joe, thanks for making it happen, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother.
All right. Take care.
Are we still
Did you
live?
end it?
No.
Oh, am I supposed to end the stream?